Rabab Hashim, welcome to Up and Coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Kiran. So you'd be dressing up and there's going to be this jhumka shot and there's going to be those bangles on the screen. So that as an actor, you know, the audience would enjoy it and you would be doing it. So
The audience loves that, especially when that's the intro of a character when she's putting on the kajal. I'm like, this is my favorite character. This is my girl.
I had massive anxiety. I did not want to get married. Like, I was one of those people, I would always run in the other direction when I see that conversation happening. I think the actual concept of marriage, like the real one, is somewhere between all the toxicity you see in dramas and all the Instagram pretty marriages where, you know, you're just like, you know, putting up posts for each other and showering each other with presents. It's in the middle of that. It's the real day-to-day where you wake up with a headache in the morning and your partner does something really small to make the day better for you.
Drawing room culture that we used to have where like the uncles would sit and make fun of their wives or something, and it's like, it's actually not funny
It's
anymore.
actually a thing in Pakistan.
It's such a thing,
Like, you hang out with people and you see that cracking jokes about your wife's appearance or, you know, about your spouse is just like a normal thing, and more often it's the men that do that than the women.
Even the second wife joke or the third wife, it's just not funny.
Distasteful.
Rabab Hashim, welcome to Up and Coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Kiran.
Okay, so everyone knows you, but I'll just give us brief thing. So you are a very well-known, talented actress in the Pakistani entertainment industry. But since we're having this podcast in the UAE, can you explain to our audience what is something unique about the Pakistani drama entertainment industry compared to the rest of the world globally?
I think as a Pakistani actor, I would say that what makes the Pakistani industry very different is the fact that you would actually know that if you've seen Pakistani dramas. In recent times, we've really grown. There's a change, but in Pakistan, you don't have a lot of drama schools or a lot of film schools. So what you see on screen or the kind of creative work that you see in the Pakistani industry is generally raw talent, because only recently you have people studying abroad, coming into the industry and working in Pakistan. But before that, the talent that you saw behind the camera and on camera was just raw talent. It was people discovering themselves while they were on the field working, you know, either as an actor or a filmmaker or, you know, as a director, anybody that you saw. So I thought that was something that was really fascinating, that, you know, all of these people, they loved what they did so much that they were responsible for building an entire industry without having access to proper education or like really crazy resources like, you know, internationally you would see. So I think that's the most commendable thing about the Pakistani industry, that with very little, we've managed to do a lot over the years.
No, I agree. I think the passion shows forward. But would you say like how Koreans have maybe done rom-com and Turkish, I would say melodramatic, they're good. Would you say our genre is family or rom-com, or what's ours? Or is it just vast?
I think it's more of family centered content, and it's not even necessarily rom-com, I would say, but I would say it's very emotionally charged family drama that you would see in Pakistan. And that's what people enjoy.
Because we are an emotional nation, I'd say. We're a very sentiment-driven nation.
Yes. And I think it's very stylized, and Pakistani and Indian content have that in common, that people really want to see a lot of romance, a little bit of tragedy. They get hooked with that kind of content. So I think that's what we do best right now. But it would be great in the future to see you know, I don't know, action-based content or, you know, something that's different from this. So.
And I think what's really, I'm sorry, I'm just going to like do a whole fan moment of the Pakistani industry. I think we also romanticize a lot is like mundane small things. Just like, you know, just what you're wearing, just walking in the gully. When I see it in a drama, I'm like, this is just such an aesthetic. It's so romanticized. So I think the drama industry does a brilliant job at that.
Dupattas flying and the bangle shots.
Just walking through the bazaar. It's a whole vibe.
It's actually funny because when we're shooting promotions for a project, no matter what the content is, as an actor, you would always know that there are like a set of 10 shots that you would obviously always be doing for the promotions.
Really?
So you'd be dressing up
Uh-huh.
and there's going to be this jhumka shot and there's going to be those bangles on the
Yes.
screen. So that as an actor, you know, the audience would enjoy it and you would be doing it. So
The audience loves that, especially when that's the intro of a character when she's putting on the kajal. I'm like, this is my favorite character. This is my girl.
I've probably done that in like 5 different shows so far. So yeah, I know
Do
what
you feel
you
like
mean.
do you feel like you've perfected it at this point?
Yeah, it's like you're like, oh, that shot, I've got this.
Yeah. I love that. So with that being said, do you feel like we also have a genre for the type of girl or actress or protagonist that's being shown in these dramas?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a given because oddly, like we blame the scriptwriters all the time saying that they write the same kind of content, but it's also that the audience really enjoys it. So when you show a protagonist, that is sort of changing now, but it has been the norm for the longest time that you would see this, girl who's like really submissive and the nice girl who would just like, do what the family says. You have a stereotype in place over there. And I feel like actors have portrayed those roles all the time and audiences enjoy it. They get hooked to it. We want to see romance between the bad guy and that Sharif Ladki
We
stereotype. So I think that's there. But then you also, in current times, you see stories that are challenging the norm. And you would see different scripts coming to light. But they don't always get the audience's attention the way that this particular stereotype does.
Yeah. What's a layer you wish that maybe could be explored more in maybe the dramas or anything that we're seeing? Like for me, for example, I feel like what I haven't seen that much is honestly diversity, and please correct me if I'm wrong, in the male characters. Because I feel like ladki mein shayad thodi si diversity ho jayegi, but it's always the same guy that she's marrying. Either he's rich or something, and then he becomes a husband. But I would love to see more than just a husband.
I mean, after the number of projects that I've done, I feel like instead of exploring layers of these, I would like to do a different genre altogether. Like for me, it's like if I get content where there's a bit of action or it's a mystery or it's a bit of different content, I would enjoy that a lot more. I would like to play a journalist, or I would like to play a character that is not limited to just romance or just some kind of marital tragedy happening. I know audiences relate to that, but as an actor, you want to explore that side of content. Like you want to be on screen and in those characters that you've never done before. So for me, it's no longer just about layers. It's about wanting to do an other genre altogether. Like,
and do you think we could pull it off? Do you think you've seen any of the genres getting pulled off?
Absolutely, because I feel like people have started making web series, so they're doing different content.
You were recently in a web series, right?
It wasn't so recent. It was, I think, back in 2019, probably. I did Anaya, which was for India. It was for Eros Now. So that was different content. And I feel like we have people who have the potential to pull this off. But it's just that we're very risk averse at the moment. So on TV, we're not ready to explore that side of content as yet. So, but I feel like if we ever decide to, we would pull it off for sure.
I think we could too. Yeah. So I also want to talk about, besides genre, representation and diversity. So different religions, different ethnicities. Do you think that's something that have you seen that? Do you think the audiences are ready for that?
We have a long way to go. Like there are so many topics, so many things we haven't covered. For this particular reason that we feel like people would be intolerant to it. But if you look at the kind of content that we have these days, you would see projects that are standing out. For instance, a project that recently became really popular is called Kabuli Pulao.
Yes.
I don't know if you came across this.
I have seen that, yes.
So you see different characters altogether. So I feel like there is a lot of room for us to explore that, like for us to have proper representation for different ethnicities, maybe religious segments, maybe touch on topics that we haven't so far. it's something I feel like we haven't started the process.
Yeah.
We're not even there yet. It's just like out of the last 5 years, 1 or 2 projects would stand out where you feel like, oh, they've done something different, or you see
Yeah.
a different kind of character on screen. So there's lots of endless potential over there to explore that.
Yeah. And so what's a trend you're seeing? So you're in the front lines, you're in the mix of it. We're just watching whatever's showing or coming to us. What's something that you're seeing is on the rise? What's something that you're not seeing? Just in like even trends of like the storylines or just beyond that?
I feel like we're getting closer to breaking the stereotype for the protagonist, because now when I get scripts or when I watch content on screen, I feel like the girl's character is not always the submissive girl. Like now you see like really feisty, confident girls coming forward. Like, you know, in projects you would see the promo and you would see that they've broken that stereotype.
Also,
like the girl
negative
is more
portray nahi kar rahe.
not negative bhi nahi kar rahe, and it's also like the girl would be an extrovert, the guy would be an introvert. So I feel like that is something that is changing, and you see more outspoken, more confident characters who would not put up with a lot of things. Recently, I don't know, there was this show, I don't recall the name right now, but where the guy slapped the girl and the girl slapped back.
Yeah, she slapped him back.
Yeah. So there was a lot of conversation around that. And I feel that's a good change, because previously you couldn't even imagine that happening on TV. So it's I feel like it's going in the right direction, but it's a slow process.
It is a slow process. Yeah. And so do you think our dramas, and this is as someone that works in it, a lot of societal implications happen because of what people are seeing on screen. Do you feel like that's a responsibility we've thrown on as an Avam to the dramas that we're watching?
To some extent, I feel like we need to draw a line as to what fiction is and what reality is. I feel like people take it too seriously at times. They forget that distinction, that what you're portraying on screen is actually a fictional character with a story. And that story could potentially have violence. It could potentially have a murder or a slap or something on those lines. It does not always have to be in sync with, you know, what people believe is the right thing, because it's a story. By the end of the day, it will have a certain conflict. Yeah. It portrays a certain character. I like the fact that we have conversation around these things, but I also feel that it's fiction by the end of the day, and it should be treated like that.
But do you think drama should be educational to some extent?
To some extent, but you can't expect all projects to be like that. It's not a documentary. It's a drama by the end of the day. And if you look at international projects, you know, they show a lot of things in their projects. And it's not all of it is meant as educational. Like, you know, there would be violence, it would have a warning, and it's TV, so it has to be within certain guidelines. You cannot cross those lines. But I feel like we should leave some room for storytelling as well. You know,
there's definitely a lot of hypocrisy, because like our audiences do watch Netflix. We have it in Pakistan, so they're okay with seeing things there. But then when it comes to home, but do you think it's also because we're a bit more protective when it comes to our own dramas? Like, for example, I've seen a lot of people, my friends and I will have this conversation, we're like, Western mein hum kuch bhi music video mein dekh sakte hain. But when we see someone doing it in Pakistan, we're like, no, that's our...
I think it's also, the question is, what Pakistan are you looking at? Because the masses, or the 1 or 2% that has access to all of that content, that watch Netflix, they come from a different mindset altogether. So I feel like there's a vast difference there, because the audience that's following Pakistani drama is probably not following Netflix as much.
Could be.
Your audience is people from all over Pakistan. So for them, their values or their religious, you know, whatever they believe in, is very, very strong. So when they see something, they take it as, you know, this is on TV, our kids are going to watch it, and they're going to learn this, and this is wrong, and we don't identify with this. So it's a very big conversation happening there. And I feel like people who are more exposed to international content are not primarily your audience for Pakistani drama. They might, like, I don't know how many shows have you followed? Like, you know, end to end, each episode. It's like you would occasionally follow something, but you are not somebody who would sit in front of the TV at 8 p.m. every day.
And that's the only thing I'm watching.
So, So I think your ratings or your primary audience is someone who tunes in to your show at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and watches the drama every week. So
But
that
your
audience,
audience is very vast though, because you also have a much younger audience. जो सारा दिन TikTok पे बैठी हुई है, and then they'll log in and then watch your drama. And TikTok पे, it's not really, there's no borders on TikTok. They're watching everything.
But you see, that's exactly the conversation, that the audience is so diverse. So there is a
Yeah.
big segment of that audience, the
Yeah.
traditional one, and then there's this new generation coming in who has a different concept of content because they're on TikTok and
Yeah.
YouTube, and they have social media and they're actually content creators themselves now.
Yeah.
So it's a different conversation with both those segments of
I
your
know.
audience.
And you have to make a drama in a way that it can also be in clip format, because a lot of movies people are just fully putting the movie on TikTok, fully putting the drama sequence on TikTok, and that's how you're watching it. It's going viral.
It's crazy now. It's crazy. It's like, even as an actor, it's really funny because previously it's like you're on a show. So the minute you're on set, you're acting. And then once you're done with work, you go back home and your job's over. With current times, your job's never over because there's an Instagram that you need to update. And then there's your TikTok. And then, people want to see every aspect of your life. So it's like, as an actor, it's like 24 hours. You're never completely done with what you're doing.
What do you think the future is of how it's going to, is it dynamically changing of the Pakistani entertainment industry? Like, what do you see in the next 5 to 10 years? More web series coming out, more like what's...
I think film is also going to pick up because the recent trend that I'm seeing, which is amazing, is lots of independent filmmakers are making films, sending them out to festivals. And they're actually getting a lot of attention and a lot of credit for the kind of work that they're doing. So I feel like that's an exciting thing. That's picking up. And that's going to do us a lot of good because previously you did not have Pakistani content even up there to compete against all the international content that was there. Now you hear that, your films are going to these international festivals. So I think that's a big thing. Web series is a trend that's picking up for the last couple of years. Like the last 5 years, I've heard of so many happening. International collaborations are happening. That's exciting.
Yeah.
There was one with Turkey where, some of our actors worked on a series. So I feel like it's exciting times ahead for filmmakers, for actors, directors, everyone. Also, I feel like social media has completely changed the spectrum. Previously, you had to wait to get casted in a project to sort of get in the limelight. Now it's like, if you feel like you're talented, you can create your own content. You can start a podcast like you're doing.
If you think you're talented,
you can, have your TikTok or your YouTube, and you have so many influencers and celebrities that are purely... that have come to the spotlight with the content they created for themselves. And now you would see them in commercials and stuff. So I feel like the whole sort of scenario with what it was like previously to become a celebrity or an actor has drastically changed now.
Yeah, the definition's drastically changed. I agree.
It's completely changed.
But with that, because I want to now turn into more of a personal thing, does that make you feel replaceable even in a career?
Even previously, I feel like you are easily replaceable in this industry because the sort of screen life that you have is very limited.
Is it because you're a woman?
No, I feel like that goes for all actors.
Okay.
I mean, for men, yes, you are right. You do have a point there that for men, it can go on. Like, even in their 50s, they're coming as heroes.
Yeah. But think, can I just say, I do like in Pakistani dramas, though, we do have older women playing younger brides still. Like, someone will be...
Barely. Like, I can think of probably 4 to 5 people who have been, able to pull that off. But yes, I think girls have a shorter screen life in that sense that you are easily replaceable sort of in the industry. So I don't think much has changed with the social media,
so many different aspects of it.
Social media picking up and bringing influencers to the front. I don't think that has sort of shortened the screen life because that was the case with girls previously as well. What it has done is lots of new people who wouldn't normally have come to the industry have found their way in the limelight. So I think it's a good change.
But with the replaceable feeling though, do you think that's kind of always hovering over your head? Or I kind of want to play with that because it's an interesting career that you're in. Because in mine, the day-to-day, age is not something, maybe when you're 60, everyone retires, right? But it's not something I'm thinking about. How does that work for you? Do you feel like 5 सालों में you have to work 10 times harder than I have to work because I can still chill my way through promotion?
I think that varies person to person. If you see yourself only as an actor, then I think, yeah, it is a conversation that
Uh-huh.
is important for you to have with yourself, that how would you stay relevant. But I feel like if you have goals that are sort of flexible in the sense that you see yourself doing something different in the next 5 years or 10
Uh-huh.
years, or you have progressive goals like that, then I don't think it's such a problem. And also, one thing I would appreciate here is that what this whole social media thing has made easy for us is
Uh-huh.
that previously, for example, I would be geographically limited. Like, for
Huh.
instance, if I want to do a project, I would have to travel back to Pakistan to go
Yeah.
shoot and then come back. Right now, if I feel like that's not an option for me, I can produce my own content over here. I could continue working as a host. I could start a
Uh-huh.
podcast. I could start blogging. I could do anything. The options are endless. So I feel like the flexibility it gives you sort of lengthens your career rather than making it shorter. Like, if you are flexible enough to innovate and come up with something different, then you can last longer than you would in those traditional formats. So I think it gives you more control over what you want to do. Like, nobody's stopping you. If you want to
Yeah.
create content, you can just tomorrow get your own equipment, or you could
Yeah.
do it. Like, there are endless opportunities
And
that
how you
way.
want to like appear on the screen,
Yeah.
because like you said, if you are getting older and the only projects maybe that are coming to you are like the roles of moms or like sisters and stuff, now you can hold your own destiny.
And you have greater control on the creative process.
Uh-huh.
Like, if I want to be seen in a certain way,
Yeah.
I can do that now. But previously, it was probably harder because you would have
Yeah.
to count on the script you're getting to be on screen. And then people to see you in a certain way, you would have to wait a long time to get the kind of script you want to be in.
Yeah.
Or you would have to make a compromise. That is no longer the case. Like, with my
Yeah.
social media or with what I want to say, I'm a free person. I can create the kind of contents or video or anything that I want to do, or do the
Yeah.
kind of photo shoots that I want to do. So I think it gives you more liberty to be seen the way that you want to be seen.
Yeah. Do you think this wisdom though it comes with age? Did you always have this coming into this career, or was
No.
there a time when you felt
No. I started off really young. So
Yeah.
I started when I was 10 years old. So I feel like the first part of work that I
Uh-huh.
did was never a conscious choice. It was like something would come along and I would just be like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
do this. Let's explore it. So it was lots of it was just like learning that I got while I was doing it or after I did it. Like, I would see myself on screen and then be like, oh, this was probably not the smartest idea.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have done that. And I don't regret any part of
Yeah.
it because I had a really interesting childhood that way. Like, I was always on screen, I was working, I was studying, I did multiple things. But yes, the downside of that was that sometimes you would learn too late. Like, you would do a certain thing and then realize that maybe I shouldn't have. So it was interesting though, still. And I feel like, yes, that wisdom does come with age because when you hit a certain point in your career,
Yeah.
or you've had a certain number of years, behind you where you've worked on different projects,
Yeah.
then you grow as a person and you learn so much that you didn't previously know. So it is interesting.
Yeah. Because you said once that you took a hiatus in your career, like a little break, that your confidence had gotten shattered. Does that come from within? Do you give yourself confidence, or is it someone else giving you confidence? Like, how does that happen? Was the power in someone else's hand?
I think so. What you're referring to probably is what I talked about. This was around like 2017, 2016. I think as an actor, like I told you, the first part of my work life was the mindlessly, just going with the flow,
Yeah.
not really making conscious decisions because I was a kid. So I went on a number of years like that. I chose projects that came to me and then I was like, okay, fine, let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's give this a shot. At some point, you do slow down in that journey. Like, initially when you start working, it's always like, it's a graph that's like upwards like this.
Yeah.
And then at some point you slow down. So I think it was that point for me where I consciously decided to slow down because lots of things weren't making sense and I wanted to be more conscious about what I'm
Yeah.
doing. And then you start like, doubting yourself as well. Also, you work with a number of people. So sometimes when you end up with the wrong mix of people, that can really hit you because as an actor, it's like action reaction. You're on
Yeah.
set with a lot of people, how you're being shot, the actors you're acting with, the
Yeah.
team you have, everything gives you confidence. So sometimes you end up in the wrong mix and that sort of hits you and you're like, okay, this is not turning out the way
Yeah.
that I wanted to. So I think it's always a good idea in such a situation to take a pause,
Yeah.
to like stop and think what needs to be fixed, or whether you need a break, or whether you need to rethink what you're doing. So for me, it was one of those phases where I just wanted 6 months to like sort of process it and
Yeah.
see what I wanted to do next, what was going wrong, why I was feeling a certain way, why I felt demotivated,
Yeah.
or why I was constantly ending up with the wrong mix. Like there was probably a decision that I wasn't making the right way.
Yeah.
I wasn't approaching projects the right way. So I took that break and it really helped. And then after that, I felt like I slowed down. Like I wanted to do 1 or 2 projects a year.
Yeah.
That was the biggest change. Like I felt like I don't want to constantly be in this rut where it's like one project to another. I just want to slow down and pick projects that I like. So that helped me. And it was then after that, it was a conscious process. So the transition was nice for me that way.
No, that's actually what you said is smart, because even with my friends and I in our career, if too early in your career you're put in a wrong group and someone just tells you you're dumb or you're not doing your work right,
It hits you.
you'll never not believe it. Like, you know, and I still have one friend who's just so successful, and he's like, no, but they can't see what I can see. They don't know that, like, you know, I'm like playing them. So yeah, no, I agree. And that's when you just have to step back and be like, let me
Take
just
a moment.
and like remember who you are. But in your
Absolutely.
career, I think what's interesting is in acting, you guys will maybe start together, like you have actresses your age or actors, and then you guys can, or globally you're compared. I think even when you don't want to be compared, magazines or podcasts or whatever, everyone will compare you. How does competition, is it like the thief of joy, or like how do you deal with that?
I think you have to be really strong headed to survive. Because if you let every little thing, every little criticism get to you, then I think you would lose your sanity.
Yeah.
So, and that does happen to a lot of people, like people who are either really young or they're not very confident about who they are. So the criticism, or you know, the things you hear about your appearance or the way you're acting or the kind of projects you're doing, it really hits them, and you know, they take a bit of a fall, which is not always a bad thing. You always bounce back from such a thing also. But I feel like you have to be really sound up here. You need to know what you're doing, which is not an easy task, because it's a lot of conversations you need to have internally with yourself.
That's a lot.
So it's overwhelming. And also, it's not limited to your work. Like people, sort of every aspect of your life, like your relationship, your marriage, your kid, people find it okay to comment on it because you're an actor.
Yeah.
So I think that gets to you as well. And drawing that line between what's personal, what's professional, what you're okay with talking about and what you're not okay with talking about, that is also like, you know, quite a task for an actor or for anyone in the limelight.
I was gonna say, because like you guys have like the media and everyone, and then probably on sets everyone's like, you know, maybe a little criticism here and there, and now you have the whole world with Instagram just commenting, yahan pe fazul lag rahi ho, yahan pe, like in Pakistani, I think of all of us, honestly, we're very mean. In general, everyone is, because on the internet you can just hide behind a screen, so you can just say your unfiltered thought. So yeah, no, I would die in this career. I would fully die. And
it isn't easy. And you know, people say that you have to sort of develop a thick skin and not let it get to you. It does get to you.
That's not.
It does get to you.
We weren't designed to, like, you know, hear from day till night like galiyan from the whole world.
Yes. And you would see, like, when you look at any celebrity or any actor, you would, at some point in their careers, you would see them getting really frustrated with that kind of negative attention, because it's a natural process. You're human. What you hear about yourself does have an impact, and it's not always nice. So you have your ups and downs, but yes, that's just how it is. It is a ruthless profession that way, that you have to survive with all of that, with all of that struggle. So it does take a toll on your mental health, and it takes a lot of energy to keep yourself composed and, you know, stay in the race.
Yeah. And so with mental health being an issue and not being more of a taboo in our culture, do you see more actors or people like more open to it, or like, you know, what's your take on like mental health in our society?
I feel like in Pakistan, there is still a stigma around it. Like people would not ever openly consider mentioning that they need help, or they're, you know, seeing a therapist, or they need to see a therapist. It's embarrassing to talk about it because there's a bit of a stigma around it. I think we are starting to have more intelligent conversations around the subject, but just not enough.
Yeah.
Because I know lots of people, lots of my friends who do seek help and they have a therapist, and
Yeah.
it does not in any way imply that you're crazy or there's
No.
something wrong with you. It's
Even
a
if you're
healthy
taking
process.
medication.
Yes, it's a healthy process. And, if you are choosing to help yourself that way, it is nothing but, it's the only thing it says about you is that you are a brave person
Yeah.
and you are seeking to fix what you feel is not working for you. But I feel like as a nation, we still need to normalize this.
Yeah.
We need to have these conversations more openly. We need to have more content around this. And I feel there's a long way to go.
I think in our society also, like, I know parents will sometimes take it as a failure on their end. Well, they'll be like, well, what didn't we give you for you to have this mental health? Or like, if you, honestly, I think even 5 years ago, if you came out and said you had mental health issues, everyone would look at you and be like, you're so beautiful. You have a great career.
What could potentially be
why are
wrong?
you
Yeah.
like, really, like, do you need another moment of attention to be like, yes?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
fine.
it's just approached the wrong way. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like our parents' generation as well,
Yeah.
but to some extent, they don't consider this normal. So they would
Yeah.
just be like, why? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You just probably need to just, get everything together. Like, what are you
Yeah.
saying? So I think the approach was wrong. And that caused a lot of suppressed trauma and a
Yeah.
lot of
Generational trauma too.
generational trauma. And I think we see a lot of really messed up relationships in today's world, and that is a result of that. Like,
Yeah.
had it been normal for people to go get therapy, to go see a psychiatrist and seek help, then I feel like lots of relationships and lots of people would not be so dysfunctional.
Yeah. And I feel like vice versa also. That's like an internal thing. When you know yourself, like, something's wrong, let me go seek help. A lot of times people be in relationships or situations, even I'm talking parent children or like spouse, and they don't understand that it's wrong, or maybe somewhere they do, but they can't seek the help. Or someone else, like a third party, would come and view to be like, oh, that's not normal. Someone shouldn't talk to you that way. Or, why are you doing that? So yeah.
I think our generation is a lot more vocal about these things. They're a lot more aware. And you would see a lot of this conversation happening on social media.
Yeah.
But I
in
feel
the
like
comment section, honestly.
in the comment section, yeah, that's true. So I feel like people call out such behavior now. Like, if they see bullying anywhere, they
Uh-huh.
would be very quick to call it out. But again, we have a long way to go because
But then, you know what, that I've seen a lot of people be like, हाँ लेकिन अब तो तलाक आम हो गई है. It's because of this, and like that's why divorce is on the rise and all of that. And I see a lot of justification with that saying itself.
You see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
The approach has changed now.
Yeah.
Like, if someone is deciding to walk out of a toxic relationship, we see it as, oh, talaq aam ho gayi hai. But we don't see the fact that, you would be raising dysfunctional kids if you stay in that equation.
Yeah.
So,
And a lot of people think toxic is like a cop-out word now, like both buzzword ho gaya. Everything's toxic. Everything's toxic. But
Yeah.
honestly, I don't really know.
It's a perspective. But I feel like people are moving towards a good direction. Like, I feel like now parents are a lot more supportive that way as well. Like, at least my parents and my friends and people I see around me, I feel like they're a lot more open to having these conversations. Like, if someone's in an unhealthy relationship, community that they have around them is ready to support them with a decision. So I feel like that's different from what I hear from my parents' times, or, the kind of stereotypes they went through. So it's different now, and that's a good thing.
I think that's really important, especially having your friendships. And I wanted to ask you about that. Are friendships important for you to have this space for vulnerability, or like, or is it more family oriented for you?
I think friendships are really important for me, but there is also like a flip side to this. As an actor, it's very, very hard to come across really authentic connections with people, because
you're really out not selling the actor thing. Now I'm like, it's always been such a glamorized thing, and now I feel so sad, even with the friendships part too.
No, I think probably world over it's like that.
Yeah,
the industry
it
is extremely competitive. So it's like the friends that I have around me are people I've been in college with, or people I've studied with. I have friends who've been with me for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
We were in school together, and then we went to college together. Those are the friends I would call if I really needed to talk. And in the industry as well, I've come across people that I really like, but it's not always that you would, because we work on project basis.
Yeah.
So it's like 6 months you're working with one team, you're super close with them, and then 6 months later you're all on different projects. So it's not always easy to keep in touch with people that way. But I feel like you really need to have like a strong network of good friends around you to keep you grounded. And I have that. I've been lucky.
Alhamdulillah, I'm glad.
But I feel like in the industry, it can be very challenging sometimes because it's very competitive. You're working on different projects, you're with a different set of people every few months. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. So with that, for someone who's played a bride so many times, how, when you finally did get married a couple of years ago, how was it different to what you've always thought it would be, maybe via the dramas and everything that you've done career-wise?
I don't think you have to put in a lot of effort to make it different. It is just different. When it's your day, it's your day.
Yeah.
So all the dramas that I've done, I've mostly, I don't know, like it's always been traditional bridals. It's just been done the way it's always been done. Like, when you see a bride, you would imagine them in red or maroon or some bright color. So I think in dramas, that's all I've done. On my own wedding, I knew just the kind of dress I wanted. I knew just the kind of makeup that I wanted, and I wanted to keep it super minimal, which I did. And I was very sure, I knew that I'm not going to listen to anyone for this. Like, I want this jewelry to be like this. I'm not going to do the over-the-top look. So I went with that, and you wouldn't even believe it. For my nikah, I did not even go to a salon. I got a makeup artist to do my makeup because I knew this person knew my face, and I told him, I was like, I don't want people to look for me behind the makeup. I just want the makeup to be there, and to just complement the look. So I went with super minimal for my own day because I wanted to enjoy the day. I didn't want to like walk like a zombie with like lots of makeup and jewelry and everything. And I think that's what made it special. Also, like when it's your wedding, no matter what you wear, what you do, I think the energy around you sort of makes it special. So that was different. And I don't think I can compare to any drama look or any drama wedding scene that we did. Also, the way audiences see it on screen, it's in fancy shots of like your jewelry and everything. When on set we're working, it's like a normal work day where like you've done a couple of scenes and then you put on your bridal and then you're on set and you're like, okay, what are we doing? So it's very work mode like. So you don't experience the I'm dressed up like a bride moment.
Oh, interesting.
So it's very like, okay, when are we wrapping up? Let's just get done with this.
Makeup off. Yeah.
As soon as you're done, you're just like, okay, let's get the makeup off. Let's just like throw the jewelry aside. So and on your day, it's just very far from that. So I think my wedding was nothing like anything I've ever done.
That sounds so beautiful. But marriage, how's marriage been for you? Does it suit you? Do you think marriage is for everyone? I love asking this question to a lot of people because I'm like, I don't.
I was one of those people until the day that I got married. I had massive anxiety. I did not want to get married. Like I was one of those people, I would always run in the other direction when I see that conversation happening. But I feel like I've also been really, really, really lucky because I ended up with the kind of partner that made marriage look easy. So
what does an easy marriage look like?
When you meet each other halfway, I feel like two individuals bringing their own substance and their own personalities halfway to meet each other there without trying to influence the other person. I think that's the most beautiful definition of marriage you could probably have. And I feel like I have that. With my partner, I never feel like he is trying to change me or I'm trying to influence him. We just accept each other the way that we are. It's not always pretty. It's not the Instagram version of marriage that you see. We're not always showering each other with praises. There are bad days, there are good days. But I feel like for the most part, we are able to enjoy things together because if I want to do a certain thing a certain way, he would meet me halfway there. And if he wants to explore a certain thing, I would meet him there as well. So I feel like out of 365 days, probably we managed to have 300 good days.
Wow,
and then, there's a small number of days which are not the best, where we're both struggling with work issues or, personal issues or something is happening. But I feel like for the greater part of the year, we look forward to trips together. We look forward to dining out together. We look forward to watching movies together. So I feel like that is the part that we did get right, where we don't absolutely hate being in each other's presence. And, if one of us has something coming up, the other person is super supportive of that. So I feel like that's a dream marriage.
No, that's huge because there's even a movement going on right now. Like all these women that are in secure relationships. Can you guys tell your stories? Because online, all you see is like the toxic and he left me.
It
and
is
he cheated
a buzzword.
on me. It's a huge buzzword. Even the dramas made the shadi ke baad is when it all goes, all hell breaks loose.
I think the actual concept of marriage, like the real one, is somewhere between all the toxicity you see in dramas and all the Instagram pretty
Yeah.
marriages where, you're just like, putting up posts for each other and
Yeah, looking
showering each other with
amazing. Yeah.
presents. It's in the middle of that. It's the real day to day where you wake up with a headache in the morning
Yeah.
and your partner does something really small to make the day better for you, or you come home from work and you've had a bad day and you can just chill together and vent with each other. And I feel like that's what it is, like the day to day, the waking up and the sleeping, everything that you do in between, and being in the presence of another person and enjoying that. So I feel like if you get that right, the part that nobody sees,
Yeah.
it's not on your Instagram. If you enjoy those parts and you don't feel like you particularly hate your partner while doing that, then I think you have a good thing going.
How do you think you got that right? Do you think it's because you made a conscious decision to go into it being independent? You have your full personality developed and now you're entering it? Or like, why do you think people don't get it right?
I think a key, solution to that is that you have an honest conversation before you get into it. One thing that really worked for both of us was we did get into an honest conversation before we decided to get married, where we put everything out there, like what's important for me, what's important for him. I told him that my work is something that has always been closest to my heart, and that will always be like that. And would you be okay with that if, there are times where that comes first and everything else comes second?
Yeah.
And he was okay with that. And for him as well, things that were non-negotiable or things that he felt were important to him, he put that on the table. So understanding what the other person expects of you and what you expect of him, when you put all of that on the table and get into a relationship, I feel like it's a lot more easier for you to meet each other halfway.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like we rush into something because it's all emotional, and then
the timeline and all of that. Yeah.
Everything. And then, when it's day to day and the not so glamorous part of marriage, you are not okay with what the other person expects or what you expect. He's not delivering on that. So that's where problems start. So I feel like instead of it being an emotionally charged decision, it needs to be a conscious decision that you make after putting in some thought into it. So I think that worked out for us. And also we have a good mix because I'm generally like the emotional person out of the two of us, and I'm chaotic and I'm all over the place. And Sohaib is the calm one. So it's like we meet each other halfway, because when he needs the pushy element of my personality, and I can be that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I do that and he deals well with that. And with me, it's like I'm already all over the place. Yeah. So with him, it's like, okay, let's just put this down on the table. First things first. That's his approach to things.
Yeah.
And I need someone to ground me. So with us, I feel like we have that right mix of balancing each other out in terms of our personalities. Yeah. And it works well.
I think you give good advice where it's like, let the two people have that honest conversation instead of like getting families and everyone involved and be like, hum ye hai, hum wo hai.
I'm going to add, with that point, I'm going to add to that the more you sort of settle conflicts in your relationship with just the two of you, the better it is. The more you refrain from involving third parties, including your families, your friends, the more you, sort of not make a spectacle out of your relationship, the more chances you have of surviving together as a couple. Because I feel like that is part of the problem. If every time you have a conflict or a fight and there's an entire audience, like you have friends who know about what's happening in your personal life and you have family who's interfering, I think that's one key rule that I and Sohaib have in our relationship. Like if we have a fight, there is no third person who ever even knows about it. It's just the two of us. We would sort it out among ourselves. We would never discuss each other with, friends or anyone. So I think having that kind of respect for your spouse is also really important.
That is important. But whenever I hear that, I'm always like, so then who do you rant to? Who do you vent to? Like, he's really annoyed you. You're like, maine kisi ko batana hai, dil ki bhadaas
to him.
Oof.
To him, go up to him and be like, you're really annoying.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed right now.
Yeah.
But because you'll feel differently after a couple of hours when you've calmed down. But the friend that you're talking to, or the family member, they would not.
Yeah.
You would go back to loving your husband and you would, probably make up after that fight.
And forget about it.
But the person that you've already, spoken to would disrespect your spouse. And I don't think I would be okay with that. So for me, it's more of a selfish decision that, I can probably bash him, but I don't want anyone else to do that. So it's more of that. You need to offer the same kind of respect that you would expect from the other person.
I think you really define respect beautifully there, because you're right. Like for me, I'm always like, I just want to rant to someone, but you're right. Later on, it's your own relationship's respect also that's going
Absolutely.
down for
And
the rest of the
also,
world.
like, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like, I would not feel good if one of his friends or one of his family members would, say something about me, or if
Yeah.
they know details of what's going on between us. So I would not do that to him as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's just mutual.
Yeah, and I think that really counteracts that whole dining table or a drawing room culture that we used to have, where like the uncles would sit and make fun of their wives or something, and it's like it's actually not funny
It's
anymore.
actually a thing in Pakistan.
It's
even
such a
still.
thing. Yeah.
Like, you hang out with people and you see that cracking jokes about your wife's appearance,
Yeah,
or,
really.
about your spouse is just like a normal thing. And more often it's the men that do that
Yeah.
than the women.
Even
So
the
it's
second wife joke or the third wife, it's just not funny.
distasteful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you moved abroad after your marriage, and I know you guys came in like, meeting each other halfway. How was it moving abroad? Because Sanam Jung also recently had this video where she was like crying. It's hard. And it is hard moving abroad, especially like you're so
Yeah.
ingrained in Pakistan.
Insanely hard. I was scared because around the time that we got married, I think this was the biggest conversation I kept repeating over and over to him, that I was like, because I knew that if I sign a project, I would have to be back in
Yeah.
Pakistan. And although it is a short flight and I can
It's still not the same. Yeah.
it's just not the same. So I ended up signing a project 2 to 3 weeks after I got married and moved here,
Oh, wow.
just out of fear
Yeah.
from being away. And I did sign that, and I did come back to
Yeah.
Pakistan, and I started working like really quickly. And in the first year, I was barely ever in Dubai out of this fear. So it is hard. The hardest it hit me was this year, because before that I was just always hopping in and
Yeah.
out and like, traveling, doing projects, coming back. And whenever I would come back, I would treat it like a vacation. Like, I would be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm off for 2-3 weeks, let's do this, let's go
Yeah.
out. So it wasn't like really like a move
Huh.
until this year, when I had Maisha and I had to take a longer break.
Yeah.
And I went into depression. Like, I think it was also postpartum depression
Yeah.
hitting me. And then it was, a combination of not being able to work. I don't have the sort of personality to sit at home.
Yeah.
And not looking down upon women who choose to do
Yeah,
that.
no,
Like,
not at all.
huge respect, but it's just the kind of person that I am.
Yeah.
I've always been a workaholic, and I wanted to be out and about, and just not being able to do that was really hard. So I think moving abroad, especially when you work in Pakistan,
Yeah.
and you're what you do is location bound, so it's kind of hard. Like, it was a bit of a struggle for me.
Yeah, especially with a newfound motherhood as well, because now you're probably like, okay, this is home. My daughter will maybe be raised here. She will maybe have friends,
And it's also like, before you have kids, it's like you decide to do something and you're like, okay, I'm going to take the flight tonight and I'll be back tomorrow.
See you. Yeah, figure it out.
See you.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And
Yeah.
he'd be like, okay, fine, just do it if you want to
Yeah.
do it. And I did a lot of those spontaneous trips
Yeah.
before for work. And now it's like, if I have to travel even for a day, there is a whole host of things I need to figure out for Maisha.
Yeah.
So I would be like, oh, how is she going to do this? How do I do this? And then I would prepare everything. So even traveling has become like a task now, that you have to think 1,000
Yeah.
times about, planning a trip and doing something. If she's traveling with me, then I have to think even more.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit of a struggle. And also just being away, like, I was in Karachi all my life. So it's like, I loved traveling, but Karachi was always home.
Yeah.
And now Dubai is home because my family's here. Sohaib is here.
Yeah.
My kid is here.
Yeah.
So it's like, having to call a different place home is also a bit of a struggle, because
it is a struggle.
there are restaurants that you like, there are friends that you hang
Yeah.
out with, and you leave all of that behind. And then there's work. So it's not as glamorous as you think it is. It's a bit of a compromise. And I really miss, being in Karachi.
Is motherhood as glamorous? Because now all of a sudden, even before actor, because I know you're very proud of being an actor, and as you should be. You're a mom before that. Like you said, you have to think about your daughter before any project, any personal.
I think it's a huge battle you have to fight in your head to reach the point where you can accept that you can be both. You can be an actor and a mother, and sometimes one thing would take precedence over the other. So the initial few months were really hard for me, because I was sort of mentally struggling with the idea that, now I'm bound and I cannot do anything, and I cannot step out as often as I wanted, and, I cannot take on the projects that I wanted. But I feel like somewhere down the line you have to make that adjustment, be more flexible,
Hmm.
and admit to yourself that you will have your moment. It is just not right now.
Yeah.
So I think I got through the worst part of it, the sleepless nights,
Huh.
and all of that. I think it's getting better now from here on,
Yeah.
and I'm sure everyone goes through it. It's
I
equally hard.
I appreciate you talking about that because you do give off a very independent energy. And I think a lot of people are always afraid of saying that. Like, yeah, it's hard,
It
because it's always like,
is.
oh, it's the biggest blessing. I can't think of life, but
Please
like,
don't believe everything you
yeah.
see on Instagram or TikTok, where you
Or like
see
even your
like,
influencer just
yeah,
saying like,
yeah, or
yeah.
the influencer mom idea. It's not
Huh.
always like that. Like, I have not had 5 consecutive hours of sleep in one
Yeah.
year
Oof.
almost. Like, my daughter's 10 months old,
Yeah.
and since she's been born, I have not slept 4 consecutive hours. I wake up every 2 hours at night. Sometimes I'm surviving on 2-3
Mhm.
hours of sleep. And that's all mothers for you.
Yeah.
That's how it is the first year, until your child decides to sleep through the night.
Yeah.
So before that, not every day is pretty. Some days you wake up and you don't change out of your PJs. You just
Yeah.
want to be there and survive the day and go to bed the next day. So it's like one day at a time in the first year, and it's really hard. But once you make it through that,
Yeah.
then I think you feel really good about yourself, because it takes a lot more effort than you are used to putting in. So previously it was like just about me.
Yeah.
I feel like traveling. I feel like eating out. I want to go to the
It's
gym.
a selfish existence.
It's a
Yeah.
selfish existence. And now it's like, oh, we want to plan a trip. It has to be some place where we can take Maisha along with us. We want to
Yeah.
go out for dinner. It has to be a place where she can go with us. So it is a bit of a struggle that way.
I don't know if I ever want to have kids.
Yeah,
And everyone loses their minds. They're like, "Tum
I
guna
actually
kar rahi ho."
was like that.
Yeah.
Like, I did not like. So he was really sure that he wanted kids, and I was just never sure. So
And I'm in the same boat where I'm like, it's not like I don't wake up. I mean, maybe we can record this, but I don't wake up every morning with the yearning of being a mother. It's just
absolutely.
it's not part of my, but maybe if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'm okay. Everyone loses their mind. They're like, that's not natural. That's just.
I think it's okay to admit that everyone has that conversation with themselves,
Yeah.
because it's not always pretty. It's not always easy. And you have to sacrifice a huge part of your
A huge
personality
part
to
of
be
yourself.
able to pull it off the right way. So yeah, I think if you're being
Yeah.
honest, everyone has that conversation. There are people who are super like excited about having
Yeah.
kids, but by the end of the day, it's a lot of work that you're
Which is
putting
a
in.
red flag to me because, yeah, it's great to have kids, but will you raise a good kid? That's another fear. Like,
that's
do
a
you have that
question,
fear?
yes.
Like, is Maisha going to be a good human?
And it is one of those things that keeps you up at night, because
Yeah.
you, as a parent, like, you're always thinking, like,
Yeah.
if you want to raise your kid right, you need
Yeah.
to change a lot of things that you do.
Yeah.
So it's a whole process, and it's like lots of times you see her doing something and you're like, no, so this is not the tone I want to set, and it just drives you crazy.
Yeah.
But it's also fun. Like,
Yeah.
we've had moments where we would stay up till like 3 a.m. and she's crying. Like, in the initial months, she would be crying all night, and we've tried
Yeah.
everything, both of us, to calm her down. And then we would just spontaneously look at each other. We're helpless, and we would burst out laughing.
Oh,
because we don't have it
really
figured
wholesome.
out.
Yeah.
One more funny thing that we had, the moment was when we went to her first doctor's appointment. She was 48 hours old. Like, she was literally just like 2 days. She was this tiny thing. And we felt like, okay, we're taking her out for the first time. So we packed her bag, put in her everything, her diapers, and, her diaper bag ready. And we're like, okay, we're going to the hospital, put her in the stroller, and then, went to the car, put her in the car seat. When we got to the hospital, we realized the diaper bag was at home. And we packed everything, and we made sure, like, with the whole checklist, everything's in there, and then we left it at home. And now we were freaked out because we were at the doctor's appointment and we didn't have anything, and we were going to be there like for 3-4 hours. So it was like a joke between us where we were like, oh my God, this is like hilarious.
Yeah.
But at that time, both of us were panicking. So I think not having it figured out and stumbling your way through it is also like a funny process.
Yeah, no, that's okay. For me, I feel like I'd forget the kid at home.
That could have been a possibility.
Yeah,
too.
no, 100%. And then do you want her to be like, she must speak Urdu, she must do this? Because you're raising a kid abroad at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What are some things she has to have?
I think we both of us, like, we come up with these things. Like, I want her to learn multiple languages.
Yeah.
I want her to be fluent in Urdu as well, which she would be, because, we would teach her that, but we also want her to learn Arabic or French, or
Yeah.
to be a high achiever, to do a sport. I
Yeah.
think everyone's like that.
Everyone's
So
like that. Yeah.
it does take a lot of work. Yes.
It sounds exciting. You're in a adventure of a lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I think that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
I
for
really
having me.
appreciate
This
the
was
conversation.
fun.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you so much.